in college where like it was just a bunch of college kids laying on the ground, symbolizing like dead bodies or something like that.
Seems to be, I would like to have think in my 20s I had great discernment, but I really didn't, right?
Same.
And I'm sure 20 years from now I'll have a
Oh,
lot
I
better
was so dumb.
discernment than now. So,
Yeah.
um, so what was one of the dumbest things you ever did in your life?
Oh man. Um,
I got Buddy over here. He started laughing. He's like, I can't believe Dutch asked that question. So we
so
can
you
always
know,
we can always delete it if
yeah,
it's
I,
bad.
I didn't think that this was dumb at the time, but now looking back on it, I think it was pretty short-sighted. So, I was going to college when Bush Jr. was the president, and that was after September 11th, and when we were going into Iraq, even though later it was discovered there was no weapons of mass destruction. And I totally did one of those 1960s-esque protests where in college, where like it was just a bunch of college kids laying on the ground, symbolizing like dead bodies or something like that. Looking back on it now, I mean, and I thought I was so high and mighty, so self-righteous. I was going to show the man, how, we're so against this war. And now looking back on it, I mean, I was glad to participate in it. It was something I learned from, but I think that it was could be really conveyed as disrespectful to our armed forces, who that's their job, is to provide safety and protect our country. I just wasn't thinking about them. I wasn't really thinking about the people of Iraq or that might have been affected by the other part of the war. I was just there to prove a point. So I think that speaks to what you were talking about with the discernment. I had this much, for those of you that are listening and not watching it, I have just my thumb and forefinger an inch apart. I had this much, wisdom on what I thought I was accomplishing. And it was all about me. I was proving a point to the man rather than, really learning how can I make my voice heard in a meaningful way? How can I be looking at all sides of this issue? Even then to decide what my opinion was, I only was interested in confirmation bias. I was only interested in, hearing the side that would further promote my agenda, right? What I was trying to prove rather than hearing all sides or learning who might be affected other than just my own opinion.
It's interesting, now you're still an activist though, right? It's just a very different type of activism. Like it
Sure.
doesn't stop. Like I was at like when I was at the charity dinner, right? I was, my wife has gotten extremely deeply involved and there's a lot of other people involved and they're like, "Do you want to would you want to volunteer? Do you want to volunteer? Do you want to help?" And I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Wow, that's a pretty strong answer." And I'm like the things I believe in life, like I believe my God-given ability is to build wealth, grow wealth, and if God calls me to help a cause right now, right, it might be to give my voice to it, but more than anything, it's to donate, right, to
Yeah.
invest, and give money to important causes and those kind of things, right. And that's just where I am, right, in my
Sure.
life and different things. But it's interesting because we don't stop being activists,
No.
right. Um, but it's like activism changes or it shifts over the years in different ways. Like I don't know that I could ever be like Ben Shapiro's like an example of someone who's a constant activist, right? Or
Yeah.
there's different activists that are out there that constantly are running that hard game. I sometimes wonder where he'll be in 10 years though, right? With his activism and how it shifts or changes, because that lifestyle of you know conference to conference or speaking engagement to speaking engagement to conflict to conflict, right? Like it gets tiring, having traveled and spoken around the world. Like it gets tiring, but I mean maybe it feeds him, which is a whole different game, right? If you're passionate about it and it feeds you, it's a different kind of
Oh,
conversation.
absolutely. And I think it's almost kind of like, the way I think about it, hopefully as we grow and evolve and, learn from our experiences, it's like starting out with like a fire hose of water and you're just sort of spraying your ideas and activism at everyone, right? Anyone that'll listen, even if they don't want to listen, you get up in their face and you should tell them what you think. But then hopefully as we, grow and learn from our experiences, our failures, our successes, we can hone that activism so that it's really going after causes and beliefs that are really near and dear to us. I think back, we were talking about doing things that when we were younger. I think back then I didn't really know. I didn't really know what was truly important to me. Everything was important to me. I was, 20 years old. I was just ready to give my opinion on everything. And now I'm much more comfortable with hanging back and saying, oh gosh, I don't have an opinion on everything. And that makes my opinions that I do have on causes that I believe in much more solid for me.
Mhm.